Good evening, everyone. Today is April 4th, 2023. It is 6:09, and I would like to call this meeting to order.
This meeting is being held in accordance with Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act. Adequate notice has been provided by transmitting this notice of this meeting to the Asbury Park Press and the Star Ledger by posting it on the bulletin board reserved for such announcements in the Township Municipal Building and by filing it with the municipal clerk on January 6, 2023. This agenda is complete to the extent known, and formal action will be taken. Begin with a roll call. Councilwoman Fisher? Present. Councilman Gager?
Present.
Councilman Nadell?
Present.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Here.
Mayor Berger?
Present. Is there any reason to go into executive, Mr. Clark?
Yes, Mayor, we have some attorney-client privilege issues to discuss.
That being said, can I have a motion to go into executive, please?
Motion to go into executive session?
May I have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Aye.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. It is April the 4th, 2023. We just completed executive session. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. It is 7:03. May I have a motion?
I'll begin with the roll call.
Roll call.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Present.
Councilman Gager?
Present.
Councilman Nadell?
Present.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Here.
Mayor Berger?
Present.
Thank you.
If we could stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with a moment of silence for all of our fallen heroes. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a proclamation for Alcohol Awareness Month.
I'm just going to read it facing the
Sure.
screen, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Hi, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Krista Riddle. I'm the Howell Alliance Coordinator for Substance Use Prevention and Mental Health Awareness for our community. Tonight I'm going to read a proclamation for Alcohol Awareness Month, which is April each year. So for 2023, whereas according to a 2022 World Health Organization report, approximately 3 million people die each year as a result of harmful alcohol use. And whereas according to the 2019 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, approximately 16 million Americans were heavy alcohol users and 14.5 million Americans had an alcohol use disorder. And whereas 7 million adolescents ages 12 to 20 reported current alcohol use despite its illegality for this age group. And whereas 65% of seniors reported high-risk drinking. And whereas alcohol use disorders are among the mental disorders with the lowest treatment rates due to a lack of problem awareness, denial of a problem, stigma, shame, and boundaries to access support resources. And whereas excessive alcohol use is associated with increased risk of injuries and chronic diseases, such as liver and heart disease, cancer, poor pregnancy outcomes, and mental and behavioral disorders. And whereas alcohol use during the teenage years can interfere with normal adolescent brain development, increase the risk of developing alcohol use disorder across a lifetime, and contribute to a range of negative consequences, such as injuries, sexual assaults, alcohol overdoses, motor vehicle crashes, homicides, suicides, and other causes of death. And whereas the Howell Alliance for Substance Abuse Prevention and Mental Health Awareness remains committed to community education and awareness on the prevention and treatment of alcoholism, alcohol misuse, and underage drinking across all age populations. I don't know if you have to read the bottom part.
Please.
Oh, first.
You could go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
Whereas, therefore, Mayor Teresa Berger of the Township of Howell, on behalf of the Township Council, do hereby proclaim April 2023 as Alcohol Awareness Month in the Township of Howell and commend its observance to all citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. May I have an acceptance of the minutes from March 21, 2023?
I'll make a motion to accept March 23, 2023 minutes.
A second?
second.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
I'm abstaining.
Thank you.
Before we begin, I wanted to commend the township on the hard work that you've done for the hurricane that we had through the town. Under the leadership, you did a very good job. It was very amazing, and every department did such an outstanding job. I really thought that at the senior center, that was great. It was just, everybody came together, and I think that's what Howell's about, is when the time gets rough, all the departments really do pull together and do what's right for the people in the town. So I want to commend the entire organization, and under the leadership, I'm sure you did a wonderful job for this project, so thank you. At this time, if there are any reports by the officials, Mr. Clark?
Sure. I'd like to amplify the remarks that you made, Mayor,
Please.
and point out some specifics. So I can tell everybody that the night of the storm, I received a text from our DPW director, Paul Novello, while the tornado was on the ground. I'm going in. I'm going to give it 10 minutes. I'm going to get there. The same thing with Brian Greenfield. The same thing with Victor Cook of OEM, Chief Starro, all the police. The response was amazing and fast, and they did such a good job. I asked Victor and Paul to send me the names of some of the people who were working there that day, and I would like to read them because I do think it's important just to take note of the work that they did. So, in particular, Victor Cook, our OEM director, singled out dispatchers Thomas Ford and Robert DeLeo, who are working the 3 to 11 shift. We also have from OEM Nick Barillo, Ron Carmen, Helen Corrigan, Mark Friedman, Brian Foran, Brian Hodes, Bronson Jacino, Adam Lerner, Brady Pettit, Joe Pajero, Devin, and Jim Rappelier. Paul Novello particularly wanted to note Ken Harcraft, George McCoy, Anthony Buenavalenta, Bill Pitzner, Chuck Walsifer, Evan Schneider, Matt Flick, Kyle Bodie, Kevin Sandberg, Steve Lane, Craig Meldrum, Kevin Milasakis, Steve Rosenzweig, Michael Seski, Joe Klaus, Justin Byers, Frank Kessler, and neither of them included themselves on the list, so I want to note for the record right now, Victor, Chief Starro, the PD, Brian Greenfield, Melanie Decker, who went in at midnight and stayed until 9 a.m., making sure that the senior center was accessible to the residents who needed shelter. You're right, it was one of the best parts of Howell, and to see it on display, it was amazing. So there were many others, Mr. Howard, Mr. Morgano, our construction officials inspecting damage, the night of the storm. So, yeah, it's we sometimes get lost in the, contentious issues here, but this is one that brought us all together, and I just want to salute everybody for that night.
I agree, and I would thank you very much for keeping us up to date, like, in real time, so that was very important, and thank you. I thank you for that. Mr. Howard?
Definitely to echo that, all the first responders, just about every department chipped in. Todd Morgano, who was our construction official for over a year, he came in almost immediately after the storm. I think he took 4 hours off from 9 p.m. till 3 p.m. the next day. Took 4 hours off to get some sleep, but was in. Also, Gene Verrier and Steve DeBrito from my office were inspecting damage throughout. So not the fun part of the job by any means, but they did what they had to do to help out where they could. Also want to mention tomorrow at 6 p.m. at the Farmingdale Municipal Building, there will be a second meeting regarding 15 Mall Road and the hazardous waste investigation that is ongoing by the EPA. We expect the EPA, State of New Jersey, Department of Environmental Protection, and Monmouth County Health Department, myself, Township Manager Joe Clark, and Victor Cook will also be attending for another information session and to answer any questions. My last item, I don't know who needs to hear this out there. We went through this a couple months ago with code enforcement. Today, we came across a house, a residential structure, 4-bedroom, bi-level, in, just any street, Howell, and there's 4 extra bedrooms constructed in the basement. I don't know who needs to hear it, but it's got to stop. We are going to use every means possible, issue violation summonses. The only thing we could do is, really make the summonses hurt so that everybody can see the example we're setting. It just got to stop. So landlords, tenants, whoever's doing it, make it stop. We're gonna be on the lookout, though. That's all I have.
That's a really important topic because we're talking about people's lives.
Agree, and it seems to be getting worse. It's frustrating. It stresses us to the max as to what our staff can handle, especially on the follow-up, the court dates, making sure things don't slip through the cracks. And it's an amazing stress on code enforcement and the housing group. So we're trying our best, and we're going to stay on it as best we can.
Thank you. Caitlin?
No legal updates at this time.
Lou?
No updates at this time.
Diane?
Yes, thank you. On May 11th, 2023, at 11 a.m., there will be a plenary retail consumption license bid with a minimum bid of $250,000. All applicants are required to submit their 12-page application, certification of proof of compliance, and a certified check for $25,000 on or before April 26. There will be an eligibility announcement on May 3rd at 11 a.m., announcing the pre-qualified bidders with an award of bid by resolution on May 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, I would like to open the meeting for public comment on consent agenda items. Thank you. Rosemary Laubach? Right where you are, ma'am, thank you.
Just turn the microphone.
That would help. Okay?
Yes,
Can you
ma'am.
hear that? Okay. I am here speaking on behalf of many of the residents in the area about the warehouse building that is going on Fairfield Roads and Howell Roads. And I understand that there is a sewer project that is on the agenda for tonight that is supposed to be discussed. And we have so many questions, and honestly feel like we've been snowballed into this whole thing by the planning committee with all of the Zoom meetings that most of us never got a chance to even comment in. Now we have this humongous structure and anticipating all these tractor-trailer trucks that are going to be coming in. So we have, my first question is there an updated impact study by an independent party regarding traffic control, air quality, noise control, environmental impact, and property value impact of all these warehouses in this very rural part of Howell, in North Howell? I have a second question regarding the sewer system and what the cost of that is going to be to the residents of Howell. Who's going to financially be responsible for putting it in? Who's going to financially maintain it? When it breaks down in the future, does that come out of our tax dollar? Where is the money coming from for this? We are all on septic and wells. So I don't understand the whole sewer thing. So before I go on to my next part, is there any information that you can give us as to updated studies that we can look at and find out exactly where this project is going? And
So what I would recommend is that you have 5 minutes to speak. And so we want to afford you the 5 minutes. So if you would just give us all of your information, and then we can respond at the,
Okay. So my last part is I would like to make a motion to suspend all warehouse projects on Fairfield and Howell roads until the following impact studies are completed and the residents of Howell have an opportunity to review and comment.
Mr. Clark?
Is that the end of your comments?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Paul Rayberger?
Yeah, good evening. I've been coming in here probably now for 8 years, when the mayor was first elected, and I believe Mrs. O'Donnell was there, begging you for help on my road. I got a big, major problem with people speeding down the road. There's something like 3,000 cars and trucks a day coming down that road. 85% of them are doing just about 50 miles an hour. I was in here last November, explained to you that the cars are going so fast they're not stopping when the kids are getting on and off the school buses. And we literally almost lost a kid. I told you about that the last meeting. Anyway, I was trying to work on getting the trucks first. I had a meeting with Mr. Clark, and the main reason I came in tonight was to find out how
How's
it was
your knee?
going.
How's your knee doing?
Oh, slow recovery, man.
All right. So I'll give you a very quick update. Typically, we don't respond to questions, but we did have our meeting. We're still waiting to hear from the state on that, and we're going to work with our traffic to keep moving on it. So it's not that we haven't done anything, it's that the wheels of the state move very slow with
How does
it.
the whole
so.
operation work? You put a report together or send it into the DOT?
Yeah, we work with our traffic people, and then it goes up, and then it
Did it
usually
go- did it
lands
go-
on the desk, yeah.
Did it go to the
Yeah.
DOT yet?
Yeah, I think it has. I'll double check with traffic.
Take a look at that?
I will check with them and see.
Should I contact you towards the end of the week, or how can I get that information?
When we set up another appointment, you have my number, and we'll have another meeting. And if it's there and accessible, then I'll get it to you.
I mean, I think it's been 3 months now? 4
Yeah,
months?
that's not a long,
Now, just so you know,
that's not a long time.
all the legwork's been done. The police department did all the legwork.
I saw the reports from the police department, they're equivocal, so we need something more concrete, and what you've given us also stretches back decades, so.
No, this one was just a couple.
The one
years.
from Chief Carter is very
No,
old,
well, that's.
and it contradicts what you're saying as well, so we need something more up to date than even that.
Well, the one I gave you was the one Kudrick did. That wasn't that long ago. And it pretty much spelled the whole thing out. I got a copy of it right here, right now. And I also have some information I'd like to give this board right here tonight, if I could, just to give you an idea of what's going on out there, if that's possible. I got pictures. I got trucks going head-on into school buses right here. I got tractor trailers. There's around the corner from me, they approved some kind of a warehouse. They increased it about 5-fold. Everybody told them before they approved it, the night of the meeting was a Zoom meeting, nothing but problem with trucks. The trucks are speeding past my house all day, all night long. And one of the specific questions somebody asked, is it possible for them tractor trailers to pull out of there without having to go into the opposing lane? Okay? And the answer was, from the applicant, yes. I got a picture right now, tractor trailer coming out of there, can't make the turn, jackknifes, ripped the corner of the guardrail off, the guardrail around the bridge. So my question is, what's going on? These people come in here and they tell them certain things, and it's not true. I got the picture right here. I mean, where do you go with something like that?
Could you please give your
Yeah.
information to our clerk so that she could share that with us, your pictures?
Yeah, I mean, I
or
wish I could put the
written?
pictures up on that screen so everybody could see.
Yeah, so we'll let Mr. Rayberger finish. We're departing from protocol. We should stick with that.
And like I said, I brought pictures in here for the past 8 years. I'm showing school buses loaded with my road's used by at least 3 schools over there at the Town. I got school buses stacked up, tractor trailers can't make the turn, going head on into them. I got a picture right here too. I got a truck, Lakewood Allenwood Road, there's a bridge right there with a 15-ton weight restriction. Freaking truck's going over it. It's got to weigh at least 3 times the weight limit. And there's a police car right behind it. The place is out of control. And like I said, we literally came this close from losing a little kid just about a year ago. And I mean, what? And as far as the speeding, out of control, they put some sign up, that was just a joke. You need to put speed bumps on that road. That's the only thing that's going to slow it down. I don't see any enforcement out there. There will be another, there was already a fatality out there.
Excuse me, thank you. Your time has ended.
Did I tell you about the little kid that got killed out there?
If there's information that you'd like to distribute to the council, please
Well,
give
then
it
I'll
to
just
our
have to- I'll
clerk,
come
and
to the
she'll be
next
able to
meeting.
give it to
I'll come
them.
to the next meeting and tell you about the little kid that got killed.
When did that
I already did
happen?
tell you about it, but I'll tell you about it again.
Yes, Chair.
I'll give you a call
I
tomorrow.
know. Robert Gorbich?
I'm here to represent the residents of Green Acres Mobile Home Park, which is in Howell Township off of West Farms Road. I've been a resident there for 37 years, and we have a problem with management. The problem is we don't have any management. We haven't had any for at least a year now, maybe longer. The management that we did have didn't want to hear us. And I just like to make that report. I know that the rent control is just for rent control, so we have no voice there. This here is the only voice we have. And so we're looking for something to be done to our advantage. There's a lot of issues that have to be worked on in the park, and we have no place to go.
Thank you. I am sorry, but I cannot read the last name on this list.
Last name begins with an S? Yes, sir. Did I get that right?
As a reminder, can I have everybody please state your name and address when you come up and speak?
Thank you.
Jay Sepulveda, in the Jerseyville
You
area.
speak a
I'm
little
sorry,
louder.
we can't hear you in the,
Sorry, can you hear me now?
yes.
Okay. Do you need me to repeat my name again?
I'm sorry.
You need me to repeat my name again? MJ Sepulveda in Jerseyville, right by the Desai Fairfield Road area. So I guess first, it's probably my first time here speaking to everyone, but I'm here to talk about the sewer system, that the sewer one that, for these projects on Warehouse. And actually a bit disappointed at my whole town, because I know we have very capable and very professional people, but I honestly feel like they're working for the developer and not town residents. So I ask the town council, planning board, what is the real benefit for that to the community of all of these warehouses? We have in the Fairfield area, 6 warehouses going up, probably about 1,000 trucks and vehicles that each of them have capabilities for. Today, I did my little, traffic experiment. I sat in Fairfield Road and Howell Road for about a minute, and there were about 80 cars in a minute, trucks and cars. So, to Rosemary's point about all of these impact studies, they're old, they should be updated, we should request as a town. I mean, I understand that they're here and there could be permitted use, but where is the benefit? What are they bringing to the table, for us as residents in the area? Because the sewer, as I saw in the resolution, they're going to pay for it, but they reserve the right to request reimbursement afterwards. So in the end, that will come out of the taxes. I think with the planning board, it's been ongoing, that it's only been virtual. I've heard of many people calling in and not being allowed to speak. If they've spoken in the past, they might have a new comment. I don't know why they would not allow the public to comment on, if they're actually listening to the meeting, and those meetings are not, 10 minutes long, they're about 3 hours plus. So if somebody sat on the call for that long, it would be a courtesy, even if they did repeat. Fairfield Road will not be able to handle two-way truck traffic, even with the road being widened. Right now, there's no pedestrian walkway, and to be honest, it's a death trap for any cyclist or pedestrian trying to pass that area. The average wait time for loading and unloading is about 2 to 3 hours. So where are those trucks going to wait while they're waiting to get loaded? Because they won't be able to go on Fairfield, so, because then there would be, no one will be able to pass. My other point is 24/7 warehouse operation. That disturbs me tremendously, because now we have these monster warehouses coming and all of this traffic. They have to back into the loading bays, which means the backup beepers will be going all day long. And I understand that's something that it's part of OSHA, but I would ask the town, the planning board, whoever will listen, not to allow a 24/7 warehouse in our area. The other thing with waiting, and this is actually documented. I think I read somewhere that it was about 11 hours a truck driver is driving, but only 6.5 of it is actually driving. The rest of it is waiting. So what happens when they're exhausted?
Excuse me, your time has ended.
Okay, so if I may, I would ask that the planning board hear no further projects until we're actually able to speak in person and not virtual. And I also ask I'd also ask, and I apologize for taking the time, but I would also ask that the town council not approve whatever resolutions there's related to these warehouses today. And the last thing, if I may, my apologies for this, but there is an ordinance that says, while on site, Signs shall state in clear letters the number of houses being built or square footage of and type of commercial development being constructed, the hours of operation for construction as provided by Howell ordinances.
Excuse me, your time is run, but if you have any additional information you'd like to share with us, we can always be reached by email, by phone, and
I would like
we're aware of
the
the
public to
ordinances.
be aware of all of these projects.
Yes, but it's not, I'm sorry.
The-
We cut
yeah.
off the other gentleman. We
Yeah,
can't.
it's time,
we can't do
yeah,
this.
thank you. Are there additional names on the public
No,
comment?
there are not.
If anybody else didn't put their name on, they're welcome to come up.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mark Parisi, 2 Castle Court.
Hi.
I'd just like to echo well, first of all, I just want to applaud the township officials for how they handled the tornado. I agree. Listen, I come up here, I know sometimes I'm critical of things, but I think that when people do a good job, they should be praised. And I'd just like to acknowledge the professionals in the township that handled the tornado and OEM and everybody involved. I want to echo what some of the residents said about the 2 resolutions related to the tentative and final sewer for the 2 warehouse projects up in North Howell. I did some research, and I've never seen this council pass a resolution expanding sewer to any project before the planning board has adopted a written resolution approving the projects. You have one warehouse that was approved on February 16th. You have another one that was approved on March 16th. The planning board hasn't adopted a written resolution for either of these projects yet, and this council is moving to already extend, permit sewer service to these projects so that these developers can now go to MRSA and begin getting all of their sewer, in the ground. I've never seen council do that before. It should be the policy of this governing body that they do not take any action on expanding sewer service to any project until the planning board has adopted a written resolution and the 45 days has lapsed, allowing the public to review that resolution and bring forward any legal challenges that they have the right to bring forward. So that's my recommendation to you guys. The other thing is that I want to follow up on an email that I had sent to the township back in March 8th regarding one of these particular warehouse projects. It's the Howell Road warehouse that's next to the Howell Point Swim Club and the North Howell Little League. I'm going to read my email into the record, and just because I know that everybody has read it, I hope by now. My name is Mark Parisi, and I reside at 2 Castle Court. I have spoken during public comment at several planning board meetings of which you represented various applicants. This email was addressed to Ken Pape, the attorney, but it was a copy of the governing body and other officials. I'm emailing you to expand on the comments I made during the 90 Industrial Court application last week related to weight restrictions on Howell Road, also impacting truck traffic for the 29 Howell Road warehouse application. As you may know, I attempted to speak during the 29 Howell Road application and had my hand raised. However, for reasons that are not clear, I was not called on to speak. I wanted to express my full comments in the hopes you may agree it is possible to improve truck circulation for the 29 Howell Road warehouse. My foremost concern is the safety of our community. The 29 Howell Road warehouse was initially denied in October 2021, at which time it was testified trucks would only use Okerson Road since Howell Road was weight restricted. I do believe your clients desired to use both roads as it allowed for better circulation. While the denial was pending in court, the planning board adopted a circulation element in May of 2022 and recommended the lifting of weight restrictions on Vanderveer Road to Howell Road northbound to Route 33. The application came back for a Whispering Woods hearing in September of 2022, and there was no discussion about the circulation element or the recommended lifting of weight restrictions on Howell Road. The court remanded the matter in January 2023 without knowledge of the circulation element or the aforementioned recommendation. The planning board approved 29 Howell Road on February 16, 2023, however, has yet to adopt a resolution memorializing this decision. Prior to this happening, I would like you to consider the possibility of working with township officials to have the aforementioned weight restrictions lifted. Doing so would allow your clients to seek an amended site plan approval that may provide for better circulation and overall design for the 29 Howell Road warehouse and ultimately the community. I will elaborate. As it is now, all trucks must use Okerson Road to come and go from the site. The public expressed significant safety concerns about the volume of trucks driving past the North Howell Little League fields to access Halls Mill Road and the Route 33 bypass. The lifting of weight restriction on Howell Road will allow trucks leaving the site to use Howell Road. This would mitigate the number of trucks using Okerson Road and ultimately make the community safer as less trucks would be driving past the North Howell Little League fields. Trucks leaving the warehouse would be able to make a right turn onto Howell Road South, then immediately use the ramp for the Route 33 bypass west, which is a quicker way for trucks to access Route 33 rather than driving to Halls Mill Road. Of course, there would have to be signage that Howell Road remained weight restricted beyond Vanderveer Road, so trucks must use the on-ramp for Route 33 west and not continue beyond it. Please kindly consider this suggestion and discuss with township officials. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thomas J. Cohen, 612 3rd Avenue, Bradley Beach, New Jersey. I just want to give a little historical context to your vote tonight on the sewer. I was the developer for the Monmouth Athletic Center at one of these sites on Fairfield Road. We wanted to build a 300,000 square foot athletic center. We met with MRSA at the time. The sewer was said to run right down the street, right down Fairfield Road to 524. When developers do an application, they meet with MRSA ahead of time. This is already all worked out. To hold this up at this point would really not be fair. I took meetings with the State Planning Commission because the entire lot there was not in the 208 plan, which is the wastewater management plan. We had to design the athletic center, and I guess this could only happen in Howell. We couldn't have any toilets or urinals on this side of the line. All the toilets and urinals had to be on the front part. So we actually had bathrooms where the line ran right down the middle. That's how absurd it was. So the State Planning Commission understood. They put the entire property in the 208 plan. When Rock Solid Realty was approved across the street, they included our property in their presentation for sewer service. So to use sewer service as a tool to hurt a developer at this point, I don't believe is really fair. I do want to say I did have some good support for the athletic center from Councilwoman O'Donnell was at every single meeting. Mayor Walsh was, but there were other council people and former mayors who spoke against it. And it was very disheartening because I really wanted to build that. And I am really hurt that it's going to be a warehouse, but that's what the zoning allows. We also met with Kay Hovnanian and had a very nice plan that was not chosen by the council for round 3 of affordable housing. It would have supplied 60 units in a Hovnanian Four Seasons project. So I just want to put that out for the public, that this is really not the proper time to go after the sewer. The planning board did their job, and they did it very diligently. They stuck with the proofs. They stuck with the reality of the zoning, and that's the way it should be. This zoning's been in place for a very long time, and no one came to the meetings. Nobody came to the master plan. That's the time to change it, not now. The developer has done his job, done his presentation, and the sewer, holding up the sewer is really not something that should happen. But I appreciate you. I do want to say when I did the 208 plan, they brought in Mr. Heyer from Heyer and Gruhl. There were council members at the time. Even though the State Planning Commission approved the 208 plan change, there were council people in Howell, it's not a nice space as this, that's how long ago it was, who brought in Mr. Heyer to speak against the change. But Mr. Heyer didn't. He said, the way development is going, it's time for this section to have sewer. And the council, it was not unanimous, did approve the sewer service area, the 208 plan, for that property on Fairfield Road. So I appreciate you listening to the historical context of what you're going to vote on tonight, but I think it's the proper thing to vote yes. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it, Council.
Thank you.
everybody.
Hello.
My name's Philip Langer. I live at 286 Merrick Road, which is right off Fairfield Road, where I've been since the Langeville Bulb Company ran their tractor trailers all night long, and we had to get a new mayor to shut that down. So there's
Excuse me,
problems. Okay. This gentleman that just spoke, that said something about being fair to the developers, well, the developers are multi-million-dollar corporations looking to make money. Let's talk about being fair to the citizens of the town and following the rules of approving sewage after the planning board, after all the plans are approved afterwards. Okay, the first person that spoke up here was a gentleman from South Howell. He was talking about the school buses and the tractor trailers. Well, I challenge all of you, to go north on Fairfield Road when the buses are letting out from the schools on Adelphia Road at the end of there and sit and watch the light at 33 change 3 or 4 times. That's happening now. That's not happening when 750 tractor trailers are going through there every day. That's happening right now. The traffic study that they based all their decisions on the planning board, they said was 2 or 3 years old. The whole area has changed. There's been a lot of development. They should be working off a newer traffic study. I'd like to know specifically about this 24-hour operations and why the town, why it's even legal, why it's even allowed. I'd like to know how we proceed to shut that down. I'm not just talking about by us. I'm talking about anywhere in the town where residential areas are impacted by the sound after 10 o'clock at night by tractors, just like with construction and anything else. I shouldn't be laying in my bed at night and hear tractor trailers riding down Fairfield Road. The planning board meeting, the last one, as previous ones, have all been online. I did get to speak, but in the next hour, I was fortunate to get more information about what's going on in the town and in our area. So at the end, they said, are there any more people with questions? And a lady said, there are 2 hands up, but they've already spoken. Okay, we're ending the meeting then. Shut down. Who's in charge of this bullshit? I mean, excuse my language, but it's ridiculous. We've already spoken, so we can't learn new information and formulate new questions. That's absurd. Okay. Excuse me. Just so everybody knows, the guy that said the thing about it being fair and the warehouse people, the one warehouse that's already built, if you haven't driven past it, there's a for sale sign in front of it. It's for sale. So it's not like anybody's looking to make any money or do business in our town. They're working for outside interests, regardless of the residents in the area, and then they're selling. And there was already at least 150,000 square feet of warehousing available on Fairfield Road before that building ever got built. Doop. Doop, doop, doop. Thank you.
thank you.
Hi, the name is Joan Osborne, 28 Bronia Street, Howell. I just had a couple of comments. I was at the Farmland Preservation meeting, and at that meeting, Mr. Howard indicated that there are several positions open on that particular commission. It's my understanding that Shade Tree has positions open on it, the Environmental Commission has positions open on it. I would request that the council and the manager look at the applications that they received in December and fully staff those so that all these projects that are coming through can be adequately reviewed and that the residents can be informed about them ahead of time. I also had a comment on the planning board hearing that approved one of the warehouses last month. I attended that meeting virtually. I find it very difficult to follow the meetings virtually as well as you can in person. I think it's a disservice that they are waiting until June when the remainder of the applications are completed before they're going to go back in person. We don't get to know who's there. We don't get to respond if new information comes in. We get one time to say anything at the end of the time that all the experts testify, which may be several meetings from the time that they testify. That's the time that you get to ask them questions. So in that aspect, it hasn't been fair to the residents. I also found at that last meeting in particular that the professionals that are hired by the town's planning board, or I believe council approves them at the annual reorganization meeting, they seemed very much focused on helping the applicant as opposed to being there and responding to the residents and their issues, providing answers for the applicant, providing testimony and saying, isn't that right? And I found that very off-putting, and the idea that we're paying these professionals to help the applicants and not the residents is absolutely flabbergasting when it's very clear that the residents don't want this development. So I would just ask that you reconsider or counsel these professionals to not be in favor of the applicants, but be in favor of the town residents. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Leggio, 9 Livingston Drive. I'm not going to comment on the warehouse stuff because I just got reappointed to the planning board, so obviously that would be a little conflict. But I will say the Zoom needs to end and we need to go back to, in person. We could sit here and do this in person. The Board of Ed could do it in person, but for some reason, planning and zoning can't do it in person. So I'm not going to say no names or anything, but, maybe some people up here need to make some phone calls. Maybe Mr. Clark makes some phone calls. I think Mr. Bosevert said June because Comrade Biden said, that they're going to end the COVID thing in June. It's ridiculous to do it another 2 months. Let's get back to in person so people could be heard, okay? You have residents here that are voicing their concern about they can't get on, they only have a few minutes, okay? Very easily could get bumped off, very easily could get muted. I sat on the board for 2 years during COVID, so I see what goes on, okay? As far as our new council members, congratulations, okay? Everyone that's gotten up here tonight has spoken and has questions, okay? Not one of you, the three, have asked a question back, okay? I have a problem with that. Everyone's been here for like 100 years, okay? So she asks us a couple questions, whatever. Oh, and Mrs. Berger, thank you for crossing political lines, okay? I'm a registered Republican, as a Democrat, and putting me back on the planning board, okay? A lot of people aren't happy about that, okay? I'm only one person. I don't expect to do much, okay? I'm a pretty intelligent guy when it comes to this with building and land use and all this stuff. I read everything, but we have a lot of stuff in place that the residents don't understand, can't be changed, okay? It's already there. A lot of this stuff is in the works for years, and we have to eat some of it. That's just the way it is, okay? But the new council members, ask some questions, all right? What are we doing here? I could be home with my kids hanging out. I come here, listening to everybody, and now one of you guys ask a question. And I don't care if you don't like what I have to say. I pay you guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Perhaps we can update Mr. Leggio on how council meetings are run?
You were one of the clowns that was up there for 4 years.
Could we do that?
As a reminder to public, we updated our council meeting protocol at the end of last year to begin with this year. Each member of the public has 5 minutes to make their comments to council. We found in the past sometimes certain people would get extensions, and it would be unfair because Some people would get to speak for longer than 5 minutes. Some people would only be capped at 5 minutes. So we made a policy moving forward that every single member of the public gets 5 minutes no matter who you are. The council is instructed not to interrupt your time because, again, there are no extensions. So if they interrupt your time, start answering and asking you questions, you're limiting the time that you have available. We're up here, we're taking notes, and after public comment, we're going to be able to speak onto some of the issues that you have raised tonight. If we don't have answers for you immediately tonight, we do our best to answer those questions at the next meeting.
Thank you, Caitlin. So at this time, I'm going to close the, this portion of public comment. May I have a motion?
Motion to close public comments.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Can we please respond to the public comment?
I'll try and answer a few without bouncing around too much. I mean, a lot of people are looking to us for answers, you know, like we're the planning board, we're not. So when you're talking about impact studies, each project has to stand on its own merits. It comes to the planning board, there's extensive testimony given, there are public comment and question opportunities after the professionals, there's questions for that professional, and then there's a public comment period at the end of the hearing. That's the bylaws of the planning board, and even when we go back in person, that's going to be the process that's followed. There's going to be a question opportunity after each professional gives testimony, and then there's going to be the comment at the end. I've seen it in the past before COVID that repeat people aren't allowed to come back up, especially if it's within the same comment session. If you're first and then an hour of public comments come up, usually the boards aren't allowing people to come back up. I don't know if that'll change when they come back in person, but that's always been the policy. That's within the bylaws of the boards. Questions about sewer on these projects. Cost of sewer, it's being installed by the developer, solely at the developer's cost. Maintenance, the systems will be turned over to the township after. We have a utility group that does maintain all the township sewer systems. That will still be the case. Having certain portions of the township sewered is, as one of the people came up, said, was looked at in the past, and the sewer extension on Fairfield Road was cited in the testimony for the rock solid warehouse. So if anybody has questions about how that was decided, I recommend you review the video from that hearing. Suspending further hearings and applications, we don't have the right to do it. Anybody can come to the planning board, zoning board with an application for development. We don't have the right to just say, you can't be heard. We don't. Virtual meetings in June, I know you had spoken about that extensively. They are coming back in June. Again, those bylaws and most of the policies are going to stay in the middle. If the idea is that the public wants to be able to come up and shout from the audience, it's not going to be tolerated then. If that happens, then the meeting might be adjourned. So the decorum is still going to have to be kept. The policy on the public comment periods are going to have to be kept. Questions about a warehouse on Ramtown Greenville Road and truck turning. That project is improving the driveways. That project has not been built yet. The site plan has not been perfected. The issue that trucks are having an issue turning is because the site is in its current condition and the improvements haven't been made yet. So when that project is complete, that will no longer be an issue. That project is not complete yet. Green Acres Mobile Home Park, I'm not sure, but I will talk to council about the...
Just to quickly jump in on Green Acres, I am aware of issues there. The management company is now located out of state. They were previously located in state, so we are working to track them down and get them moving on it. We understand what the issues are. I'm not going to go into it too much because it's privileged, but I am also trying to find out, and maybe I'll reach out to this gentleman tomorrow, Whether or not they've increased rent, because typically that's only done through the mobile home rent control board. So there's a few questions I have, and once I get those answers, we will drill down with the management company exactly what's going on there.
Thank you.
Regarding the Howell Road warehouse project and a question for the developer to amend their site plan, the idea put forward was that the Township Council should take action and change traffic patterns so that the developer can come back with an amended site plan that may or may not be better than the current site plan. I don't think we should set precedent by changing patterns for one specific development. That could set a precedent for the future. B, we can't force an applicant to come back to the board. It costs a significant amount of money to engineer a plan, submit an application, have the plan reviewed, and appear for an approval. The specific project mentioned was denied twice. I don't think the developer has much appetite to come back again, and frankly, I don't blame him. The final issue, the 3 resolutions on tonight, tentative and final sanitary sewer approval. This is the beginning step of an outside agency approval. Every commercial project connecting to a sewer project has the plan reviewed, and this council approves what this is, which is the plan itself, and it allows the township to sign off to start the process of getting the outside agency approvals. It's a TWA permit, which will eventually go within the resolution. It even specifies that there is secondary approval needed from Manasquan River Regional Sewerage Authority, Ocean County Utilities Authority, and NJDEP Treatment Works approval. There is no law that says that this can't happen before a resolution is drafted. The approval was given. The resolution memorializes that. It spells out the conditions. All this is doing is allowing the developer to start the process earlier, which only puts them at more risk. If there's a challenge to the planning board case, if there is a issue that comes up, it's at their own risk. These are completely separate processes, and if the planning board approval doesn't move forward, neither will this. The reason that this is ready is, like I mentioned before, one of the projects was denied twice. The owner of these projects is the same, and they're tying into the system. They have all the details. They don't have to do extensive engineering. It's already been done, so they're ready. In other cases, the developer may wait a little bit, do their plans over time, and take their time. Everything's worked out, plans have been reviewed extensively, and all this is saying is that they could start the 3 to 4 to 6+ month process of getting these other approvals. The resolution will be out, the appeal period will be closed, and if there's an appeal, then that project's going to have to follow all the timelines of the appeal. So they are completely separate projects. There's nothing nefarious about the timing here. I can certify to that. I can tell you that. I talked to the township engineer about this today, and you shouldn't have any concern about approving those just to start the sewer approval process.
Thank you. We didn't miss any other questions, did we? I have one question to go back to. If we could talk about the homes that are building bedrooms downstairs. Should we publish their names?
So the records of violations and summonses are public. Redaction will require the names to be blocked out.
Likely not, but I don't recommend that we publish. Summonses usually don't contain redaction as to personal information, but I would not recommend that we, publish individual names on a township level, but instead pursue and look at the base problem of adding bedrooms and let the public know that we are aggressively pursuing these issues on the whole.
And don't get me wrong, we're as fair as absolutely can be, but when we're starting to see patterns of management companies that are doing this repeatedly, they know, they're on record. We have violations to them on other properties, we go to summons. We're not wasting time. We're making sure we're going by the book, and we're making sure that we can defend any position we take in court. But like, I think you can tell, my patience is out for this issue. 4 bedrooms in the basement on a 4-bedroom house, so they ultimately doubled it. It's got to stop.
So was it used as a residence, or was it used as like a hotel or Airbnb type thing, or would you know?
It's hard to say because we do get a lot of complaints that it's iterant people. It's somebody different this week. It's somebody
Right.
that works for the company and it's different next week. That's hard to tell. We get there one snapshot in time. We see who's there. We can usually tell based on the applications they submit that they're not the same people in the application. I think for the most part, it's people coming and going. And I don't know what type of system is out there, brokerage or community of realtors that organize these things, but it's rampant and it's unacceptable.
Agreed.
Matt, these summonses, they're under the new fine schedule now,
Yes.
so they're pretty hefty.
Yeah, it's a $1,000 minimum for failure to register, $1,000 minimum for failure, or for occupying without a CO, so we're talking about $2,000 minimum. The maximum is $2,000, so if we need to, we'll start at $4,000. And then we also tack on over occupancy, property maintenance, anything else we see. Work without permits, I get uniform construction, the building department involved issue their own violations, which are separate. We're really trying to hit as much as possible.
The word will get out.
No. Okay, can we have a motion for the consent agenda items for separate vote, 153, 54, and 55?
I'd like to make a motion to pull those for a separate vote, R23-153, R23-154, and R23-155.
And then the motion would cover R23, 152, 156 through 158A. Is that correct?
Vote on the motion to bring those out separately first, and then you can vote on the consent agenda.
Okay, so may I have a motion to pull 153, 154, and 155 for separate vote?
Make a motion to pull R23-153, 54, and 55 for a second vote.
May I have a
separate vote.
second? Thank you.
Second.
Okay.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Thank you.
And then should I do the resolution for the other?
Yes, please.
So will I have a resolution R23-153, 152, R23-156 through R23-158A?
I'll make a motion to approve the aforementioned resolutions.
Thank you.
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Thank you. The consent resolutions pass.
So then,
We're going to do R23-153.
may I have a
Yes.
motion?
Before we go through the motions, just a suggestion, would this be beneficial to move these until after the planning board resolution is completed?
I don't recommend it. There's no reason to.
May I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to move R23153.
May I have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Excuse me, discussion on this, please? In that, again, Mr. Howard, would you again apprise council that this particular motion does not in any way affirm sewer? We are not voting on sewer for this particular project.
Planning board's approved the project, which includes sewer. This is allowing that process to start. And it's a 6-month process to get those approvals from the outside agencies. This is the first sign-off. That's it.
But the vote tonight by us is a major legal to the process to begin. We are not voting on the sewer, or we are voting on the sewer?
This is voting on the sewer application to proceed. The utilities director has reviewed the plan, and the plan is acceptable, and this is moving the process forward.
And this would,
So they still need to get their outside agency approvals at this point. They still need to go to MRSA and work with them. They still need to go to OCUA, work with them. And they still need to go to NJDEP, work with them. So at any stage of that, any one of those regulatory bodies could, halt it. It could ask for more information. So the process is lengthy. And in terms of what, the Councilman Nadella talked about, look, we don't recommend that you pull these off the agenda for tonight, but council controls its own agenda, right? So if you want to wait until there's a planning board resolution in place, you're free to do that. However, I want to remind you too that the planning board's already approved it, right? They've taken the vote. So it's already a challengeable action. So anybody could go into court on a prerogative writ. Now, the judge may say, well, where's a memorializing resolution? We don't have one. And the judge says, well, wait, let's see. There's already been a juridical act. They're quasi-judicial bodies. They've already taken the steps necessary to approve it. This is a minor approval coming out of this body. It's not putting your stamp on it. It's not telling the planning board how to rule on anything. It's not coming out in favor of the sewer. It's saying, okay, we're going to move it along for you, and you go now to these other bodies and see where you got with them. That's all.
would there ever be an occasion where council would be asked to do something similar to this with other caveats of an application? I mean, typically at the end of a planning board application, when it's being voted on, there's a lot of jargon, and then the person would say, and all of the caveats that have been accepted by the applicant, and they have to have all the outside approvals.
Yeah, of course.
Which, by the way, this would have been one of them. Any other ones could have been something electrical or whatever the case.
Of course, almost all approvals at the planning board are subject to other approvals, and if you don't get one of those, it's like dominoes falling, right? You hit one of them, and everything all of a sudden goes to hell on you. So that's what happens here. They're just trying to get their ducks in a row. You can approve it or not. You can keep it on the agenda or not. But by approving it, you're not doing anything in terms of advancing their application.
And speaking about the outside agency approvals, once the approval's granted in terms of whether wetlands permits are needed, NJDOT approval, Monmouth County Planning Board approval, Freehold Soils Conservation District approval, it's all at their own risk that they're going to start getting those approvals because that's the steps they need to take to perfect their site plan and to eventually build. So resolution compliance period is there to review all outside agency approvals long before final approval to build is given.
May I ask a question? So am I understanding correctly that we could be challenged legally and then there would be legal expenses and so on?
If you were to vote tonight, yeah, sure, anybody can sue on anything, right? So somebody could go into court and say, well, they exceeded their authority, it was arbitrary and capricious, well, whatever kind of, legal theory you want to cobble together. So yeah, you could. At the end of it, I'd be comfortable defending against it. We will expend monies to defend it, but is it one that we would win? Yeah, of course.
I'd also like to thank the gentleman that spoke from Bradley Beach, because if we had allowed that construction to go through, as Evelyn had fought for, we would have a beautiful athletic center right now and not be worried about this warehouse being built.
Well, there's a lot of that going on, right?
know,
Where
and that
one
happened
project
with
gets
the-
shot down
so-
and we get something that we don't
So
desire.
the public really needs to be informed before they come in with pitchforks. And I was guilty of that when Best Buy was going up. But we went to meetings, we asked questions, we talked to the engineers, the people that did the traffic study, and now we have Lidl, and, we used to have Frank's Nursery. So, and again, I give him a lot of credit because he had a lot of courage to come up and speak. And we have to remember that, our professionals and our council are doing everything legally. One of the residents mentioned, it sounds like we are more developer-friendly. I feel the opposite. I feel we have Jen Beam. I mean, we have strong professionals that are are following the rules strictly. Mr. Howard has done an amazing job on the new, goodness, help me out here, Fred, on the new master plan. So these warehouse issues will be no more. Unfortunately, we're still dealing with the applications that had already been approved. Thank you.
Matt, I have a question for you. Do we risk being in court if we table this or we vote it down?
Potentially, I'm not a lawyer, but this is an approval that this council has given to countless other projects. Why we're delaying this one, especially when the resolution is going to say that they need this approval to build. They need this outside agency approval, and we're saying, no, you can't go yet. Could they? Maybe.
Yeah, now, I speak carefully being on the planning board, but lots of times I know the public doesn't understand. When projects are approved at certain levels, there's really not much left for us to do. Listen, nobody up here wants to put stores all over the town. We know that. But the planning board's already approved this. So in essence, all we're voting on is them doing the process. So
Correct, and like I said,
we're not approving their sewer building.
the resolution says they need the outside agency approval.
I just want to make
This is
sure
what they
because
need.
there's been misinformation about
This is what they need. Yep.
And I can understand why there would be some misunderstanding, because it does say final sanitary sewer approval. So I understand how it would appear one way and not the way that I understand it, because I did sit on the planning board, so I understand how that process works, and I understand how the public would have the idea that we're saying, yep, this is good, we approve this, and then they go forward, and maybe people may think that they're going forward with council blessing. And I think, so my questions and whatnot, I'm trying to get as much information out so that the public understands that there's no special consideration given to this. This is a step that's in every application. So I'll ask this question. Why would the applicant need this from us today?
Because they want to move forward. They're taking their first steps at the lengthy application process to get their outside agency approval so they could start to build.
So is
Township
sewer one of the
engineer-
first things they're going forward with?
It's one of the longest lead items. It's got the longest timeline. Township engineer informed me today that Freehold Soils has already issued an approval, and Monmouth County Planning Board has already issued approval on some of these projects. So they're ready, and like I said, they've been waiting. One of the projects was tied up, and the court told us that our denial was not proper twice. So they're ready, and they have the plans ready. They're connected projects in the sense that it's the same owner. So they're just able to move fast.
So could they have pushed on this project with this particular sewer venue last week before we actually looked at it and voted? Could they have done this without us?
No. First step is the TWA permit has to be signed, and that's what this approval is saying, is we're going to sign the application so they could go to the next steps.
Isn't some of this sewer already built?
Portion on Fairfield Road is built, yes.
So some of this, or most of it, is connections?
Yes. Projects on Fairfield Road will connect into the existing, what is now the existing sewer.
Okay.
Okay, I have a first and second on the motion.
Before we go forward, I just take issue with this possibly setting just a bad precedent as far as granting this approval prior to resolutions coming from the planning board. If this has not been done in the past, this can be going, could this happen going forward?
It hasn't been done in over 20 years. It hasn't been done in over 20 years.
So, again, it's not something that, the approval's granted. The memorialization of the resolution will definitely detail the approval, the testimony, the conditions. One of the conditions is all outside agency approvals. Even if you're setting a precedent, if it comes in front of you again, it's something that can be done next time as well.
So if your comfort level is with tabling it, we can table it. And we'll be back here, I don't know when the next planning board meeting is, where the resolution will be passed. But but that's fine as well. I don't really particularly care one way or another how you want to do it. Like I said, you control your agenda. If you want to wait until there's a planning board resolution in place that memorializes the already existing approval, you can do that.
All right, I'll make a motion to move R 23, 153, 154, 155 until after the resolution of the planning board.
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher.
Abstain.
Councilman Gager.
Yes.
Councilman Nadell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mayor Berger.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Ian. Thank you. Under unfinished business. We have ordinance 23-08, an ordinance amending Chapter 302 entitled Smoking in Public Places, Electronic Smoking Device Use and Sales, Tobacco Sales of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Howell. So I would like to open this for public comment. Seeing none, I'll close it. May I have a motion to close the hearing?
Motion to close public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to adopt the ordinance?
Motion to adopt ordinance 23-08.
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher.
Yes.
Councilman Gager.
Yes.
Councilman Nadell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Thank you. The ordinance is adopted.
Thank you. Ordinance 023-09, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of 139 Asbury Avenue, Block 174, Lot 1, in the Township of Howell, County of Monmouth, and State of New Jersey. I'd like to open for public comment. Seeing none, I'd like a motion to close public comment.
Motion to close public?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May I have a motion to adopt ordinance 23-09?
Motion to adopt 2309?
I'll second.
Councilwoman Fisher.
Yes.
Councilman Gager.
Yes.
Councilman Nadell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Thank you. The ordinance is adopted.
I'd like to introduce ordinance 023-10, an ordinance amending Article 2, Domestic Animals, Chapter 57, Fees, subsection 4B, License and Registration Tag of the Revised General Ordinances of the Township of Howell.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance 2310.
May I have a second?
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher.
Yes.
Councilman Gager.
Yes.
Councilman Nadell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Thank you. The ordinance passes on first reading.
I have an ordinance 023-11, capital ordinance providing for the acquisition and installation of sports field lighting at Soldier Memorial Park and appropriating $1.2 million, therefore authorized in and by the Township of Howell in the County of Monmouth, New Jersey. May I have a motion to introduce 23-11?
Motion to introduce 23-11?
Second?
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher.
Yes.
Councilman Gager.
Yes.
Councilman Nadell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Thank you. The ordinance passes on first reading.
Ordinance 23-12, an ordinance of the Township Council of the Township of Howell, Monmouth County, authorizing the leasing of a portion of the property located at 4567 Route 9 North and at Echo Lake Pavilion in the Township of Howell pursuant to NJSA 40-A-12-14.
I'll make a motion to introduce ordinance 2312.
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher.
Yes.
Councilman Gager.
Yes.
Councilman Nadell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Thank you. The ordinance passes on first reading.
May I ask consideration to do our quick little reports prior to the budget presentation?
Sure.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Second.
Thank you. First, I would like to report that Congressman Chris Smith did call me the morning after the tornadoes, offering any assistance that Howell may need. And at that point, there was really, administration had brought in all of the professionals, including Red Cross. as well as our own teams, and we were still assessing damage and that type of thing. Thank God for no fatalities. He did stand as a future need. We need only to call him back. He is there to help us through anything that we may need in the town. Secondly, I'd like to report that the senior center has received their new stove, and they have received their new bus, and they're quite happy with it. So that's wonderful, as well as new paving near the senior center to make it a cleaner look and a more safety-aware area for the people to navigate through to get to the building. So I thank everyone that was involved with that. Also, the Chamber of Commerce this morning had a guest, or this afternoon, had a guest speaker for luncheon. It was Chief Starr with the Howell Township Police Department, who brought in other venues such as FBI and, Fred, what was the other acronym for the safety?
Homeland Security.
Thank you, Homeland Security. And an effort to teach the businesses what they can do to further keeping their businesses safe, to be more aware of what's happening in their store in terms from shoplifting to other things that could happen, and as well as terrorism was discussed, and they showed a film. It was very, very, very informative, and although it was geared to businesses, there was quite a few things that was offered today that I thought people could take away for their own homes. And again, accolades to everybody that worked on the tornado problems, administration, and all the people. You were stellar. It was like having 25 snow blizzards, and, there was no snow by morning. You just really took care of things, and thank you for being as proactive as you were. And as the mayor said, we were up to date with everything. I think I received more texts in that 15, 20-hour period than you typically, I see in a month. So thank you very much. It was very easy to put something out to the public to hopefully make them feel a little safer, guide them where to go, more importantly, show them, what website to go to for information, because we do have an official website. You don't have to go to websites that are opinions. Go to the website with the real deal. So I thank you very much for continuing to keep us safe, because even after the storm passed, bad things could have happened, and they didn't. So thank you. The Howell Township is indebted.
If I could piggyback on Deputy Mayor O'Donnell's comment. I know the residents in Glen Arden were very grateful to TJ's Landscaping, because Troy and Steve actually started digging them out right after the tornado Saturday night. So I think they deserve a shout out too. I saw a lot of people just calling each other, helping each other out. The communication was stellar, whether it was a text, whether it was an email, police department working with OEM, working with DPW. And we've been baptized by fire and wind in our 3-month tenure. But working with you guys and all the professionals has made it very, very nice.
Well, I will pass the credit along. They make us look good. They're a well-oiled machine. They're ready to go 24 hours a day, as we've seen. So, we very much appreciate their efforts.
Before we go into the budget,
The other member.
I'm sorry.
Ian or Fred, would you have any?
Listen, I'm not going to say anything else, because thank you for everything that they just say. But I want to say this. I wish the people who left would have stayed, because sitting up here is not as easy as they think. And we hear what they have to say. Everybody in this town wants the same thing, but people have to understand that there are rules, laws, and guidelines that we have to follow. And it's not always about what 25 people want in this town. We could sit up here and have 100 people come in front of us and tell us they don't like this, and we can vote in favor of what they want, and the next day we're going to be in court costing this town $1 million. So we have to follow the law, and we have to follow the regulations. Planning board and zoning board have to do the same thing. When things come before them and they're voted on, that's the way they're going to be. So I just want everyone to understand that, and I really enjoyed the process that went on here tonight, because it was democratic. Okay? So I enjoyed that. Thank you.
Please.
Yeah, you don't expect a tornado to hit New Jersey, so just seeing how well all our departments and, from the top all the way down to the bottom handled everything and got us up and running so quickly, and, communication with JCP&L and getting the power back on, everyone just did a great job, top to bottom. And just following up on what Matt was talking about with these rentals and everything, I see how passionate Matt was getting about it, and I feel the same way. Don't think you're going to come to our town and just throw the rules out the window and start trying to redo houses and cram people in there, creating unsafe conditions. We're not going to stand for it, and we're going to come for you. All right? Thank you.
One request, and I made a mistake, and we're going to talk about sewer again, I'm sorry. R23-155, it's the tentative and final sanitary sewer approval for BA 2203. That is the mod wash car wash on Route 9 where the Garden State Sign Company is. They've had a resolution for over a year. That is ripe for a decision. I apologize. I just want to bring that back for consideration if we are willing to do a vote. I fully understand 153, 154, which are the Foreman AAFFHW property and the AAFRHW Frisha warehouse are still tabled, but I would just like consideration to bring 155 back for a vote.
Would you just go over that little background, that couple of sentences that you first started?
R23-155, it's the tentative and final sanitary sewer approval, BA 2203. That's for a car wash at the Garden State Sign Company, just down the road near.
That's been there?
The Garden State Sign Company's been there, the approval's over a year old. They were actually waiting for a connection into a pump station, working with us for that. This is the sewer approval, and the resolution, the approval's in good standing.
The resolution exists.
Yes. So I apologize for that oversight, that shouldn't have gotten lumped in with the other two.
So if the council wants to reconsider bringing that back to a vote,
Yes.
they would
I
have
would
to make a
reconsider.
motion.
I would reconsider.
Yeah, we could do
Yeah.
that.
Yes.
Thank you, and I apologize for that.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to bring R23-155 for a vote.
Second,
Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Howard, for the
Thank you.
application.
Mayor Berger?
Yes. Okay, so now, can we go to the budget?
We can. Do we want to take a quick,
A recess?
quick recess? Because I'm going to go through this as quick as I can, but there's a lot of slides, I hate to say. So,
Okay, sure.
I would appreciate that.
all right, so why don't we get a quick
We'll
motion
do
to
5,
adjourn?
could you put 5 minutes on the clock, please?
Sure, and a motion, please?
Motion for a 5-minute recess.
Second? All in favor?
Yes.
Done.
Are we ready to proceed?
We are.
So at this time, do you want me to say the resolution and then this will be the
we can wait.
explanation?
We'll do the presentation first. I'm
Okay.
going to have Mr. Palazzo go over last year's financials and then
Okay.
cover the sewer utility, because those are both relatively quick. And then I'm going to try and get through my stuff
Like really quick?
as quick, well, I still have some lawyer in me, so we might be here for a while. I am kidding. I'll try. Just like my wife said, keep it brief. Yeah,
Keep it on a need to know.
exactly.
So as we said, the first slide here is just a snapshot of how we finished in 2022 as far as our revenues go. As you can see on all fronts, all 6, 7 categories of revenue exceeded what was initially anticipated. The amount of the grants there are what included the Chapter 159 resolutions for the grants that were received during the course of the year that are added to the budget. So we were able to regenerate a significant amount of surplus back into the coffers based on our 2022 performance. Construction permits, as well as some of the fees and permits that we took in, a lot of the community development-related fees and permits, help regenerate a lot of that. So here's a look at our collection rate for 2022. We finished with a collection rate of 97.72. It's about a 48 basis point decrease from last year. Our early suspicion of why it had decreased was there was a decent amount of farmland rollback that was added onto our levy at the end of the year, which we did make significant collections on, which did help our cash collections for 2022. I believe there was one rollback that was added on that has not been paid. So it was a little bit of an anchor on the collection percentage, which ties directly into the reserve for uncollected taxes. But hopefully this year, by way of if it's not paid, those delinquencies will be able to be sold at tax sale this year, so the township will be able to be made whole on that as well. This is just a look at how the budget for 22 performed. We were approved for $55.668 million. That included the Chapter 159 resolutions. We finished the year with $1.2 million remaining, which will be used to pay some of the outstanding bills that exist for 22. And that fund will be canceled off at the end of this year and will be generated into surplus for 2024. Just a snapshot of our debt statement, our statutory net debt.
I'm
Yes,
sorry,
ma'am.
do you know how much of that, an average, a percentage of that you think that would go into surplus? Like, would it be a 50% of that reserve, that?
At the end of this year, that entire, what is unspent from the $1,233,000, whatever's unspent from that, so normally we're usually putting back about $1 million.
Oh, so it's more than 50% that we keep?
Yes.
Oh, that's
yes,
excellent.
yes. As I said, just a snapshot of the debt statement. All of our issued debt and debt yet to be issued totals $77,469,000, which is a 0.904% of the allowed what we are allowed statutorily. Our max is 3.5%. That is consistent for all New Jersey municipalities. As you can see from the bottom, we have the maximum borrowing capacity of almost $300 million. Obviously, we don't want to do that because obviously we'd have to pay it back. But we are in a good spot as far as how much we are borrowing versus what our capacity is. And this is just a snapshot of our debt service, what we adopted in 22 versus 23. Our balance of our principal for our bonds, our capital leases, our notes. As I say, if you watch the news, you know that interest rates to have interest in your bank account are up, but the interest rates to borrow are up as well. So that's what's driving some of the increases on the note interest. We are renewing our ban with a pooled note issue through the Monmouth County Improvement Authority. That'll be closing in May, and we will be issuing our tax anticipation note sometime in June, July in order to meet the August quarterly tax payments to the schools in the county and such.
So Lou, are you
Yes.
saying that the note interest went up 6 times the amount of last year
So
due to inflation?
So this is the note interest that was budgeted in 2022 was for a note that was issued in 2021. Okay. And that note that we got was basically the net interest cost was basically 0.20%. So and that was competitively bid at a note sale. And what I'm anticipating based on what the note that we got in 2022, which expired in 23, will that interest was about $350,000. So it was sold in an interest environment that was much higher, and the note that will be rolling this year, the interest won't be due until the 2024 budget. So part of this is to, the county is bridging us a note because our initial note that we had expire for our bad anticipation note, the 13.85 million expired in March, and the county pooled note is not going to be closed on until mid to end of May, so they are floating a note to us that I had to account for about $85,000 worth of interest. But I do amend the county, and I do applaud the county and our financial advisor because they were able to work out a deal with them, based on a good interest rate that we could get favorable in this interest rate market to get us to the pooled note closing that we're going to have in May.
Thank you.
And just a snapshot of our fund balance, how we finished. We started the year with $7,829,000, used $4.86 million in the 2022 budget. We finished the year at a high of $11,801,389, and we're proposing using $5 million of that in the budget, a little less than 50%. So just to start off, the sewer utility, it is our sewer utility. It is an enterprise fund, so the revenue needs to equal the appropriations. This is just a snapshot of where we finished on 2022 revenue-wise. As we did with our current fund side, all of the anticipated amounts were exceeded by a significant amount. The miscellaneous, there were a good amount of connection fees that were included in there to the system. And as I say, anything that was over and above what we anticipated gets to be thrown right back into our fund balance. And again, another snapshot of the budget, how it performed. Adopted 7.4 million, spent 6.8, about 600,000 left. 450,000 of that balance was canceled and was put right back into fund balance for this year. So appropriation reserves sit at 141,000 for this year, and anything unspent from that will roll into surplus at the end of this year for 24. A snapshot of our debt service for the sewer utility. Earlier this year, we closed on our financing through the New Jersey I-Bank for the Freewood Acres project. There was, I believe, over $2 million of that issue that was principal forgiveness. Now that we have our amortization schedule, we were able to true up what our debt service was. And we will be able, hopefully soon, I'll be coordinating with the township engineer once the project is finished. There's a commercial property assessment component that will need to come in front of the governing body at some point so that we can have those assessments start being paid back.
Just a
yes,
point
ma'am.
of clarification.
Yes.
Is that, the second one is 2023, yes?
Yes, that is a typo. My apologies. And just a proposal of where our appropriations are, salary and wages, other expenses, a net increase of 65,000 to 81. And the balanced revenues and expenses to show how the breakdown of the 7,482,100 is being spent, salary and wages, our other expenses, our debt service, and it is funded through sewer fees that we receive from New Jersey American Water on a quarterly basis, as well as miscellaneous, which is interest on investments, interest on delinquent payments, connection fees, and such.
So you
Yes,
said,
ma'am.
I'm sorry. So
Yes.
you said that the money goes back into the fund, so
Yes.
that's how that we can then, in the next year, propose the increase?
Yes, ma'am.
That's how we budget,
Yes,
right?
correct,
Okay.
yes. And just a snapshot of where we are in our surplus. Started the year 1,843,000. Used 755 in the budget. We regenerated 1.6 million. So the surplus is sitting at 2.7 million, and we're planning on only using 650,000. So having a nice healthy reserve for the sewer utility is definitely a good thing.
Is there anything else that we could use this fund for? Just asking.
So I will say you are statutorily allowed to use surplus from the utility in the current fund budget, but I will caution, not every taxpayer is a ratepayer of the sewer utility. So there are some people who use Suez, other means, brick MUA, stuff of that nature. So if I know in way years past, it was, frowned upon by the, non-sewer rate users when there were certain monies that were paid over from the utility over to the current fund, because it's not a one-for-one basis, you know what I'm saying? So, but statutorily, you are allowed to do that. It is allowed. You could do that. If we have a couple years where we see the surplus is steady, it is possible that we could return those monies back to the ratepayers in the form of a rate decrease.
We did that a couple years ago.
Correct. So, yes, I personally, I would like to see a string of a couple years just to make sure, we have some healthy reserves there. But it's to the will of the council. Like Mr. Clark said, you set your agenda, so I'm just here to advise. So,
Thank you.
yes, ma'am. And I will turn it over to Mr. Clark for the remainder of the presentation.
Okay, so here we are at the municipal budget, and just to give some background, here we have the timeline. Introduction is tonight. We're going to advertise it starting April 10th. We have our...
Sorry.
That's okay. Public hearing, May 9th, and then proposed adoption, same date. So, here we are at the end of a process that's taken almost a year. I think the first time Lou and I started talking about this budget was in May of last year. And then obviously we began even more in earnest in July when we first received notification that the state health benefits increase were going to be as high as they were. We're operating in a high inflation era, and the extra cost from that it made it all the more concerning in terms of the budget. So we sat down, we worked together, we began working with the department heads in September last year on their capital needs, what they envisioned in terms of the budgetary needs. We sort of engaged in some horse trading among departments, trading off, well, do you really need this year versus next? And then finally in November, we had our public hearing with everybody, which we do every November. We obviously had the election as well, and 3 of the council members weren't seated at that time. They weren't seated until January, but then council was invited to participate in the budget process starting in January. A number of emails were sent out, and to date, everybody has had an opportunity to basically sit down with Lou and I, hear what we have to say about it, ask questions. And we wanted to make sure that everybody talked to us first before you got the budget documents for a variety of reasons. First, if there were any major needle movers prior to adoption, it's easier to do it then rather than go through the process of amendment. So secondly, too, I just wanted to make sure that everybody heard from us what was going on with it. So with that in mind, the budget goals that we had developed, and it's my budget under the Faulkner Act and under our ordinances, so I'll take blame for it if people don't like it, which I'm sure people will not. Nobody likes the budget. But we tried with the most conservative approach possible. Obviously, cost-effective, high-quality services to the resident. We don't exist for any other reason than that. Maximum quality of life. Everybody who is in this room, in this town, has chosen Howell for a reason. We have our capital needs. We have to maintain our roads. We're a gigantic town with a lot of roads. We have a lot of capital needs, facilities, infrastructure. We have, trucks, buses, everything. We just took delivery the other day of a new bus for the senior center. We want to preserve our town's investment grade rating. And we just finished up with the AA grade. I'd like to get it up to AAA. Part of the way that you do that, and I'll go into detail in later slides, is by maintaining a healthy amount of surplus. Bond rating companies want to see that. And that's one of the reasons why we're not utilizing more. It also gives us financial flexibility to have a robust surplus. So speaking of which, the responsible use of it. I mean, we've increased the amount of surplus used as revenue from 3.6 million in 2017 to 7.2 million in '21. We used 4.8 last year, but there was some of the ARA money in that at the time of 2 million. So how do we replenish it? And this is why we have to be very careful about the utilization of surplus as a Band-Aid. They're typically not, we don't overtax people, so we don't have a consistent overage coming in that there's somehow this magic surplus. It would be unreasonable of us to do that. So most of them are one-offs that come in, and we book them as miscellaneous revenue not anticipated, MRNA. So, give the next slide. That's okay. So we can use additional surplus. It buffers a tax impact. We've done it this year. We do it almost every year. We got to be able to regenerate it. And why? Disasters strike. We just had a tornado hit. Who would have anticipated that? 11 years ago, Sandy hit. Every year there is something that happens. So we want to use a responsible amount of surplus in the budget so that we have some left for next year. If we use more than what we have used in this budget, then my advice is that we don't. It's kicking the can down the road because we do not know what's going to come up next year. We do not know our refresh rate. By its very nature, an MRA and a one-off item, it's a one-off. So we can't count on this happening, and we shouldn't. So I recommend for this budget that we use the surplus that we're using and be careful about using any more because, again, it can impact our debt rating and our bond rating. Next slide. So look at our ratables. You'd have to be blind not to know that property values have gone up. Howell in particular is an extraordinarily desirable place to live. Our ratables this year have gone up 16%. By $1.4 billion. We're closing in on the $10 billion valuation. It's amazing to me that the ratables are that high, but when you look around us and you see what the township has to offer, it's also no surprise. So home valuation trends over the past 28 years. So you can see that we had a re-eval in 2007 that trued everything up. That's why the flatness that happened earlier no longer exists. We're part of the county pilot program now where the rates are pegged to actual value. So, we're seeing these increases rather than a flattened sort of period from prior. Next slide. So this is the total township assessed valuations. It mirrors the prior slide and shows that there's a harmony between those two. We'll run through some demographics. We have 18,000 households in Howell, about 24,000 land parcels. Somewhere around 3 people per household. Love the demographics rate, about 3 people. That's about 10% higher than Monmouth County or New Jersey. Howell, you have a median income of $118,000. It's about 10% higher than Monmouth County, 30% higher than New Jersey. Our average assessed value this year went up to $489,000. And again, the assessed value is primarily determined by actual sales numbers. Average in Monmouth County, $520 and some change. Average state value, much lower than here, $334 and some change. That's from '21. The average tax bill in Howell in 2022 was $8,400-ish. Monmouth County average is about $10,000. State average is $9,200. Where'd your tax dollars go in 2022? We're only talking about the municipal portion of the budget right now. What we as the township get. We don't control the budget for the schools. We don't control the budget for Freehold Regional. We don't control the budget for Monmouth County. We don't control the budget for fire districts. They all have their own challenges. They all try and do their very best in a difficult time. We don't control them. We control ourselves. And so you see Out of your tax dollars in 2022, 16.8% came to the municipality. So we have our municipal open space tax as well, and that was set by levy, so that's 2 cents. And that, the refresh rate on that is about, I think, 800,000 a year, depending on how assessed values are doing. Can I get the next slide? Here's a graphic. It shows the donut. Local schools, regional schools, I mean, they're obviously extraordinarily important. That's where we send our kids. So no surprise that a lot of the budget goes to them. We're down there in the bottom left, and then you see the rest filled in. Historical tax levies. For all the entities, you can see that's the Howell K-8 way up top, and then grouped around a little bit below that is us, the county, and Freehold Regional. So how do we calculate it? We take the levy, we divide it by the ratables. That gives you your tax rate. So what do we need to raise through taxes, divided by the total assessed value? Then we come to our tax rate, which should be on the next slide for this year. Our tax rate this year is about 0.336, so 33.6 cents of tax on every $100 of assessed property value. So the assessed value rose from 416 in 2022 to 488 in 2023, 16% increase. This year, unfortunately, the average homeowner is going to see an estimated increase in the municipal portion of their taxes compared to last year. It's going to be about $150. We're compliant with all caps. Now, nobody up here, nobody over here, nobody in town likes a budget with a tax increase, but we've minimized it. So the budget is reasonable under all the attendant circumstances. We have an upward inflationary spiral. We have, and I'm going to detail these in the next slides, we have unanticipated increases in a lot of our expenses, including obviously state health, increased pension costs, and increased liability insurance. Next slide, please. So here's your estimated tax bill this year versus last year, and we've estimated for the boards of ed, 2022 to 2023, and that reflects the municipal operation. So you can see we're anticipating an increase pretty much across the board, A, because of the higher assessed values, and B, because of the nature of the difficulties that the various entities have faced. I would not want to be on the boards of ed in this particular environment. It's a difficult time. So, you know, we expect overall, you know, an increase in the total amount of the tax load that the average taxpayer is going to face. Obviously, if your assessed value is higher, your tax bill is going to be higher. If your assessed value is lower, your tax bill is going to be lower.
So was that like a $400 increase in total?
Yeah, it's estimated. It looks like it's about right. Yeah, somewhere around there, because, yeah.
So this example was set for the average, the $489,000 average was what was the home assessed value that we used to calculate this. So if there are home assessments that are lower than that, it could be not as bad. Higher could be worse.
So looking at the components of our budget appropriations, our salary and wages, our contractual promises to our workers, obviously, they go up over time. This year, they're increasing by $1,081,000. Our other expenses are increasing. Insurance, both state health benefits, our liability insurance, they're increasing. Our statutory and deferred charges, pension, PFR, all of that. You can see our debt service, and then the reserve for uncollected taxes. We expect that to moderate, but you know, obviously we take a conservative approach to the budget, so it'll be reflected probably later on. But for right now, we're marking it as at that particular level. So.
Joe, what was under statutory and deferred charges again?
So those are our pension charges. Next slide. So here's the breakdown.
I'm sorry. But is the uncollected, is that based on historical, or?
So, no, the uncollected taxes is a direct product of our collection rate from the previous year. We basically estimate how much we're going to need to pay everybody, and if we're anticipating 98% collection rate, we need to account for 102% of what's because we have to pay all of the other entities their levy. Because of the lower collection rate and the factor of how high our expenditures are, that's where the number sits at. Normally, I have the reserve for uncollected taxes move no more than $10,000 to try to keep it as flat as possible. This was actually, I would say, based on the sheer mathematics of it, was unavoidable. I did, in order to help, you will have a resolution in front of you where we are allowed to use the average of the last 3 years. So instead of using the 97.79 rate that was our actual for last year, which would have made the situation worse, we're going to use the 3-year average, which boosts us up to 98.10%.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, so that, it's a reflection, I mean, believe it or not, some people don't like to pay their taxes,
I have
so.
one quick one. So when you look at salary and wages, non-negotiable.
Sure, and we'll see that.
Non-negotiable, and statutory deferred charges, non-negotiable.
So a couple quick points. So when you get your whole tax bill, Lou had a very good point. We're collecting for all these other entities. So we see checks being written out to the boards of ed and to the fire districts and to, to the county. We collect it. So when you pay your tax bill to us, we're not keeping all of that money. A lot of it actually goes out through our finance department. Secondly, you're 100% correct. A lot of this is either statutory or unanticipated, like the health benefits increase, and I'll explain that in a little more detail. And the salary and wages, if you go to the next slide, you can see they're contractual in nature. So we have agreements with the TWU, which is most of our rank and file here in town hall and throughout the town. We also have the Teamsters. We have a new union which will apply to our EMT and EMS first responders. We obviously have the PBA, and within that as well, we have the Superior Officers Association. So we have 5 unions. We make contractual promises to them. We honor those promises. Sure, we're not going to breach contracts. So there are costs attendant to these contracts that we have to deal with. You see there's promotions, obviously that also leads to enhanced salary and wages. One item that I think is non-negotiable for everybody is the SLEO 3 school officers. We approved that last year, and that has added to our budgetary needs for this year. We're splitting that with the Board of Ed downstairs. And we're still working to get up to the fully staffed level, so that number is actually a little bit low. Obviously, there's a huge demand for retired police officers, and we're struggling, as everybody is, to bring them in. We're working on solutions to that. I know Councilman Nadell had reached out, so we're working. So a couple of other quick things. So retirements, resignations, replacements, transfers, that saves us money, about $780,000 this year. And the next line item under that is we have a lot of open space. We have to maintain that open space. One of the things that we're allowed to do with our open space fund is to use some of that for maintenance. So we are looking to create sort of a sub-unit within DPW that's dedicated to our parks and grounds. And we'll be using a small fraction of our open space to defray those salaries, because their efforts are going to be dedicated to maintaining the open space. So that helped lower the salary and wages for this year. Next slide. So here's some of our other expenses. It's a very difficult year. So our JIF, we went up $100,000 on our insurance premium. Employee health benefits, they actually went up $700,000. We, the township, have to pay $460,000 of that increase. Under Chapter 78 of the New Jersey statutes and our union contracts, the employees are assuming $240,000 of that increase. And that is at various levels. It depends on the coverage they've selected, it depends on their salary, and it depends on the amount of people covered. So, you know, our employees are bearing part of that cost as well. So police department and EMS, other expenses. We have utilities, gas, solid waste disposal. I mean, gas prices have been spiking, asphalt prices have been spiking. Our statutory expenses, all of our pensions, up. Our fire district radio annual costs, we'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Obviously, we agreed that we were going to keep dispatch in Howell. It was the right move, but it costs. So that has added to the budget this year as well. Next slide. So hiring, what are we doing with it? Right out of the gate, I told all of our department heads, we're not hiring. You know, if you need to backfill somebody, if they've left, we'll talk about it. Only in limited circumstances. We're working to increase our police again. So we're looking to include 3 patrolmen, 1 code enforcement inspector, and 1 administrative assistant for a housing unit. We anticipate that the cost of these new hires are going to be offset by additional revenue from the housing unit. And this, you know, if you want to give a little bit more gloss on it, I'll let Mr. Howard explain exactly that part of it.
It's definitely a trickle-down effect with what we were talking about earlier. Code enforcement needs help. I mean, just what's going on in the last couple of years has really brought it to light. So hiring 1 new inspector, 1 person we're going to be able to dedicate solely to housing. Right now, we have it split where every inspector does some housing, but it's, you know, 30% some days, it's 50%, 80% some days, and it takes away from the time they have for code enforcement. Also, just the nature of our department is there's a big administrative task for landlord registrations, certificate applications. So having another administrator will help us sift through that, let the inspectors do their job in the field. It's going to be able to not only put more focus on housing, it's going to lighten the load on the rest of the inspectors so they can do more code enforcement. There are new state laws, lead-based paint. We have to do an insurance registry, which we have to kick off sometime this year, and we just did the vacant and abandoned registry. These are all bringing revenues in. They're extra efforts. These aren't things that we had to do last year, so the extra help will be extra help.
And then finally, we have hired 2 emergency medical technicians full-time for the overnight shift. The budget for them had already been on the books for a while. We work with the Farmingdale First Aid Squad. That's its name, but it operates as part of the township under our license. They had one of our ambulances. We requested it back rather than purchase a new ambulance. So now we have Farmingdale running up there, and we have our ambulance with 2 EMTs running on it. So we didn't have to pay $250,000 for the ambulance. So, and most of the cost of EMS is, excuse me, defrayed by payments made through insurance. So these are all relatively easy decisions to make. Next, some major budget challenges. I already mentioned inflation, 7% in '21, 6.5% in '22. So far this year, 6.4%. We are all feeling it, and I understand for everybody who's listening to this and who will be viewing that, we get it. The New Jersey state health benefits increase, again, $700,000. A third of it's being passed on to our employees. We first found out about this in May 2022, so not even a year ago. That day, Lou and I were in contact, and we contacted council about it as well. We're looking to see if we can move to a health insurance fund. Our loss runs are difficult. They typically, the HIFs want to see loss runs in around the 80 level. We're above that, well above that, and so switching to a health insurance fund is probably not an option for us. We're going to continue to work on solutions. We're looking at self-insurance and a number of other potential ways to minimize that budget impact.
So I have a question about the self-insurance. In my mind, self-insurance is great when you have a team that's in their 20s and 30s. But once people start to get older.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Well, I'm up there myself. So I'm just saying, it could then flip the other way where it's going to cost more money from the town. God forbid somebody gets,
So
an
self-insurance
illness.
is one of many options we're looking at, and there are a lot of factors. So it might not be the right size for us, but we're trying because I want to be able to tell everybody, look them in the eye and say, we've done everything we can to try and minimize this impact. So, like you said, self-insurance may not work for us, but we're fighting to try and find a way through this particular increase. Next slide. So again, SLEO 3s, the school program, we're looking to fully staff with 17 law enforcement officers so that our schools are as hardened as possible. These events are happening too frequently, and we want our kids to be able to go to school and not worry. We don't want to have to be able to worry. And again, I think this is a non-negotiable item, and we're going to keep working on it. Statutory increases, JIF insurance, our utilities, gas, solid waste, all increased, and we'll see a graph on the next slide. So here's a plot of gasoline prices from '98 through last year. They're currently dipping, but it's still at historically high levels. Now, why does it matter? Well, everything we own runs on diesel, just about, all of our big machinery. So it makes it far more costly if we want to pave roads, if we want to do brush and leaf pickup, if we want to run the street sweeper. Putting gas in the tank becomes a needle mover on the budget, as does asphalt. I like driving on nice roads, everybody does. But when you're looking at $800 a ton in the middle of 2022, we're not paving a lot. And that's why one of the things that we're working on in terms of capital, we have a budget for this year. It's modest, and we'll revisit it as we monitor these sorts of costs. If we see asphalt dipping and we think that we can get roads paved at a good price, we'll add them to capital. We'll come to you guys and say we'd like to add it. But I think it's just unreasonable to commit to paving roads when these prices are so high. We will try and keep an eye on it and strike when the iron's hot, so to speak. It's just a question of when. So some bright spots. We have some decreases. They total about $400 and something thousand. So we see we had a cleaning contract in place for the court system. We decided not to go forward with that, so that took $100,000 off the books. Master plan updates, we saved some money on that because we got done what we needed to get done for a reasonable price. And then some of the other things are tax appeal, appraiser, professional services. Our tax assessor specifically asked me to let everybody know he's doing that now, and he's doing it really, really well. So, so our revenue sources, we have surplus in 2022. We utilized $4.8 million. This year we propose $5 million, change of $140,000. Our miscellaneous revenues have increased by about 123. State aid, we actually got a bump this year. but it is expected to be a one-time increase only. It did go up $415,000, so it did help. Our grants have gone down, but typically we add those into the budget throughout the year as they come in. We don't have them all in pocket right now, so when you see a resolution on the agenda at any point for a Chapter 159 insertion, it's usually a grant of some sort or some other revenue that we can plunk in. Again, delinquent taxes, we collect them one way or another. We carry them on the books until we get to a point where we can sell them off at tax sale, and we get the monies then. Ultimately, that leaves us with the amount to be raised by taxation, which in this year has increased by $2.8 million. So here's how your tax bill gets broken down by department. Where does your money go? Police, EMS, dispatch, fire bureau, $500 right there. So that's 31% of your tax bill. Well worth it. Our people are great. General government, which is this side of the equation, this part of the building, and unclassified, we're a smaller percentage, and we're trying to keep the hiring down so that we can keep doing what we do for as little as possible in terms of cost. And then we see the rest of it, public works, roads, B&G, town hall, vehicle maintenance. I know these guys work so hard, and the ladies there too. I mean, everything they do earnestly and with the best interest of the town at heart. And so there you go. If you start at the top and you work your way down, it gets you to your estimated tax bill, and you can see the dollars that are allocated to each of the various departments. And I'll run through these quickly, but I know people, what do I get for my money? Well, we pay a lot of money, and you do. And what do you get? So I'm going to run through some examples of what has happened and then where we're going to go. So the police, here's an example of calls. This is just since January 1st. 10 missing persons, all located, 15 fires, 17 overdose calls, 2 fatal, 1 OD as young as 15 years, 99 crisis calls, 165 DVs, 468 motor vehicle crashes, and then almost 13,000 calls for service, an average of about 150-something per day. Disgustingly, we have 10 sexual assault crimes, and obviously this leaves an impact on the men and women who have to investigate this. $250,000 burglary, 2 arrested. 2 subjects stabbed after an argument, 2 arrested. We had the shooting call in Ramtown that people may have heard about, 1 arrested. And that's just an example. DPW. So here we go. Here's a thumbnail sketch of them from January through today. We have buildings and grounds, 76 calls, 29 drainage, no mowing yet. Parks and fields, we're ramping up. Potholes, they're always filling them. Signs, sinkholes, tree maintenance. You see, so far to date this year, 53 hazardous trees were taken down. So DPW is working. Community development. 650 new permits this year, 167 permit updates, 3,829 inspections this year. Code enforcement, we have 594 violations, 207 complaints, and inspections, including housing, 1,288. Land use, new permits, 313. Inspections, 472. And this is running with a lean department. Open space. We want to use monies to fund land acquisition, park maintenance, habitat restoration, and improvements. So what have we done so far? We worked with the Shade Tree Commission in middle school. They planted fruit trees and other trees there. We're working with the sports leagues to improve their athletic fields. We're working on riding, jogging, bike trails. We're working with the Shade Tree and Environmental Commissions on a tree planting plan. We're looking to restore habitat, which means we're not going to be mowing as much of our open space. It saves gas. It saves labor costs. We're looking to plant wildflowers, butterfly gardens, pollinator gardens, anything to beautify the town as well. Echo Lake, the ordinance that you introduced tonight is to allow the Farmers Market Committee to use Echo Lake for the farmers market. So we expanded the parking there to accommodate that. We also want to use Echo Lake for some of our other events. Unfortunately, the tree we used for the tree lighting ceremony this past year was blown down during the tornado. So we're looking at a replacement. Big trees cost quite a bit, but we're looking. We're looking to install lighting at Soldier Memorial, and I haven't forgotten about it, AEDs in the park, Mayor. We're getting quotes. Obviously, our parks are large, so we got to figure out where to place it, how to get electrical service to it, but it hasn't fallen off the radar. In fact, I just got another set of quotes from Peggy Doyle today. Demolition program, which Matt has spoken of in the past, we're looking for blighted structures, and we're either having the owners take them down, or we're going in and we're taking them down. We approved the radio project. We're keeping dispatch in Howell. We've worked with the fire districts to share the cost. Recent tornado, we see how indispensable OEM, DPW, and the police department are. The efficiency study, I have a draft coming, and we should have a final product by the end of April, middle of May. But one of the suggestions we're already employing, because it's going to take until the fall to get in place, we're revamping bulk pickup, and it should save us $50,000 to $100,000 a year. We're going to rework our drop-off yard. There's a couple other, we're going to have more details very shortly. But the savings will be real on that, and they'll be long-term. So property acquisition and open space preservation, I think this is something we all agree on. We've acquired multiple parcels this year. We're going to continue to acquire land as it becomes available. We just revised our woodlands, our tree fund ordinance to allow some of those monies to be used for open space. We have our open space fund. We work with Monmouth Conservation Foundation. We work with the Green Acres Program. And we're going to keep doing that. And why? Because everybody here works hard. You guys all deserve a quality of life. We're working on our parks. We're going to keep doing that. We want to utilize our assets that highlight Howell's beauty. I mean, we did the tree lighting at Echo Lake. We did the turkey trot for the first time last year at Oak Glen. We have our holiday lighting events, holiday movies, the farmers market, which I personally think is one of the bright spots in this town. It's going to be at Echo Lake, our holiday markets, and if any of you have been on our website lately, we had it redesigned, and I think it's easier to use. We have a new police chief.
Came out really nice, Joe. Came out really nice.
Yeah, thank you. I thought it was pretty good. So we have Chief Starro. He's working with the PBA. We're maintaining a strong police department. He's very mindful of budgetary concerns. Overtime expenses, which have sort of traditionally gone hand in hand over there, they're moderating now. We're always going to have it, and it's not a big deal because you can't predict what's going to happen. But we are seeing it start to diminish, and that's great. So what else? We have our ordinances. It's the way for council to reach out and put their stamp on life in the town, and we want there to be quality to that life. So for housing, we've increased the fines for landlord violations. We're creating a housing unit. We've established maximum occupancy standards. We have code enforcement standing by. We have lawyers standing by, and we're going to explore every avenue we can to make sure that this town stays safe and happy for everybody who lives here. We have the vacant and abandoned ordinance. We're working on lead-based paint. We just passed a no smoking ordinance tonight, and we're constantly monitoring. And I know that everybody's upset about how things had happened previously, but we are constantly monitoring our zoning. We're prognosticating. We're looking into the future now, these spaces that we have. What are people going to pivot to? How can we accommodate that now so that we're not sitting here 10 years from now saying, well, we didn't expect that? So we're looking ahead, and we're trying to make sure that we can, as much as possible, account for it. And that includes examining parts of Route 9 for redevelopment areas. I don't think that anybody's going to argue that there are parts of it that couldn't need a sprucing up, so.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we have some strip malls in town that are completely vacant.
That's part of it.
Okay.
We're working either under the vacant and abandoned ordinance.
Okay.
Or probably what you're thinking is going to be, it's on the south side.
Yes.
Yeah, that's probably in our proposed redevelopment area. So
Okay.
we're working with Jen Beam on that, and when we get a little bit further down the road, we'll be coming to council with some bigger asks on how we might want to handle that, so. Okay.
Thank you.
Next slide. So the demolition program, I can't say enough about that. That was Matt Howard's idea, and he's moving away from it on me. So he came to us with a way to address this issue, and it works, and it's been great. And I don't know if you noticed, but there are places, either owners are taking them down or we are taking them down. It increases public safety, it preserves property value. So we're also going to start looking at more of our landlord ordinances. And again, we're going to have a housing division within community development to help deal with some of this increased workload. So I hear a lot about development and truck routes in the town. We heard about it tonight. So there are state laws that allow us to delineate a system of truck routes throughout Howell. It's a heavy lift. And I can tell you why, from a lawyer's perspective, and Caitlin hopefully will agree with me. There's this weird little thing in the Constitution, it's called the Dormant Commerce Clause. And what does that apply to? When there's been no regulation at a federal level, and you do something as a municipality that arguably puts an undue burden on interstate commerce, anybody who's impacted by it can go into court and invalidate it. So what does that mean for us? It means that we have to follow a lot of rules and regulations to delineate truck routes in town. We have to do studies. We have to say, this is why. Then we have to bundle it all up, and we have to go to the state, to the Department of Transportation, and say, this is what we propose as the truck routes. Will you sign off on it? And they may or may not. Now, why are we doing this? Probably everybody in this room, not everybody, has read the state planning guide relating to warehouses and development throughout the state. And one of the things that they're saying is you have to have a regionalized approach. So we're going to work with other towns surrounding us. We're going to reach out to them, and we're going to say, this is what we're thinking. How does that fit in with your needs? And we'll see where, if we can come up with a regional map of truck routes that don't unduly burden interstate commerce and that do help with smart development. Next slide, please. So police, we're going to keep looking to hire them. I'd like to get up to 100, 101 or so, and that's going to be up to the chief. He runs the department. But he's in constant communication. We're going to keep working with the PBA. Their contract is going to be up, and we're going to work with them on that. The shooting range down at DPW, there's some demand to add another lane to it potentially, so.
Oh, no.
So that idea turns out to be DOA, and we're not going to explore it. So it's very hard to do. So I will give you some comfort on that. It's hard to do. So we probably won't.
Increase the hours.
No. We'll.
I'm okay with that.
Some of the things they have to qualify for night, and so that's why you might hear some of the noise. But we'll put this one down to the bottom of the priority list. And next slide. So again, shared service agreements. We currently share Lou with Shrewsbury. It's been a great arrangement. We have several other in place. We handle court for Farmingdale. We're going to reach back out to Farmingdale about some of the traditional shared services that we've had in place with them. we'll keep looking to other towns as well. So here we go. 2025 is right around the corner. We've got to deal with COA. We already have a bunch of credits under our belt. We're looking to continue to reestablish deed restrictions when possible. It's so much easier and so much better to get credits where the building's already in place than to have to deal with the process of development. And that's what we're looking to do. The problem is that they don't peel off that frequently, so we do have to think of development. We're going to be looking at a variety of sites for veterans dedicated housing. And right now, one of the things that we're working with, and I'm not going to go into great detail, obviously, because it's privileged, but we're working with Mr. Bear, our COA attorney, to figure out what our share will be, and we're going to keep it as low as possible. DPW, like I said, we're going to have a Parks and Grounds division so that we have dedicated open space maintenance. We're going to continue to work with our tree experts in shade tree. People pay taxes. They deserve to have a beautiful town to live in, and we're going to do our best to make that happen. Again, we're watching gas and asphalt prices so that we can add road projects in a cost-effective manner. We're working on a formal capital plan. Lou already has one, but we're working on updating it so that we can look at different methods of financing some of our capital assets, and rather than approach a budget year as a brand new year, I want to have a capital plan that stretches out for 5, 10, 20 years, depending on the nature of the asset that we're dealing with. So we have some sort of rationality when you guys are being asked to approve the purchase of trucks, the paving of roads. We can point to the plan and say, this is why we're doing it this year.
So would you do that by depreciation of the truck or of the equipment?
Yeah, so
Is that how we would calculate
Yeah,
it?
typically we would look at the useful life, figure out how much time is left on it. So I'm going to give another shout out. Joe Layton is our head mechanic in DPW, and he can make anything happen with anything. So when we get to the end of the useful life, it's like end of useful life plus 5 for him. So he extends the life of our stuff well beyond where it should be. So yeah, typically we're going to, and that's why it's iterative. I can't promise you that we're going to say we need a truck in 2 years and we're
Yeah, you
actually going to
can't.
need it. It may last us another 5 years, but we want to at least be prepared and thinking about it so that, council 10 years from now has something to look to and say, okay, I get it. This is why things might be happening at this particular point. So one thing that we're waiting to hear about, we've applied for a grant to install solar panels on the roof of Town Hall and canopies in the parking lot. Now, depending on our level of participation in that, we will generate anywhere from several $100,000 to over $1 million during the 30-year lifespan of the project. We hope to hear about it soon. I think it's a great project. They're very competitive. But we're going to keep looking for grants like that. What's that? And it will, and so that's better still. Speaking of useful life, our roof is approaching the end of its useful life. So not only will we get several $100,000 to over $1 million, we'll get a roof. So we're hoping very much to get that grant.
So I have a question. Can we ask that, for example, fire departments, if their facilities are capable of holding, that they do the similar on their buildings?
Yeah, so it
kinda
would depend
offsets-
on what the roofs are capable of holding. So we can go to them and ask them, and we have explored so there's a whole plan, there's a whole program like community solar. They're kind of backed up on applications, so it's hard to get into the program. But that's one way that municipalities have been sort of monetizing their own open space. We've looked at some of the spaces throughout town for that very reason. We're going to continue to do that. And we will talk to the fire departments
I mean,
and
the
see.
schools also.
Yeah, I think, yeah, some of them, I forget which one, is it Southern?
Middle school.
The middle school.
Has a ground array, yeah. We've looked at all township properties because anything that has potential, we want to take advantage of. And this is the kind of the pilot program where it's not development on land. It's our, it's our existing site, it's our existing parking lot, and we'll be able to get to see really how the program works. One of the positives here is that we have consumption in the building, so we get to offset that, plus generate more. Things like our park and rides, they're good sites, but nobody's using electricity there, so the economics don't work as well.
Right.
But we're looking at all options.
Yeah, we did look at a number of areas throughout town, and the most bang for the buck was to sort of put it here and have the canopies in the parking lot. It works for a lot of reasons, not the least of which is we get a free roof out of it. So another thing that we're going to talk about as a team is whether or not we think it's prudent in a year like this to put a referendum on in November to increase the open space levy. Right now, it's at 2 cents. The amount that we generate under that, of course, depends on the assessed value. But it does give us additional funds to acquire open space, maintain open space, beautify open space. So it's just, I'm throwing it out there now. There's nothing in the budget about it. This is something that would be completely separate, but we can revisit the issue further down the road. There's a deadline for putting things on the ballot in November. We'll dig into that, and we'll have a decision on that before then. But it's just something to put in your heads right now. And obviously, look, Councilman Gager said it earlier, it was democracy in action. The public comes here, they tell us what they think. We want to continue to listen to them. It's sometimes it's not that fun, but they have a point, and we have to listen. So that's really the goal, I think, for all of us. It's a beautiful, desirable place. We want it to maintain it that way, and we're going to keep working to do that. And that's what I think we do in this budget. And I can't talk anymore because we're at the end. So. I know. I used up so many, I hit the end of numbers. So there you go.
Thank you both. That was a very nice presentation by the both of you. I appreciate it. And thank you for allowing me to ask those questions. So we have Resolution R23-159, Resolution of the Township, Resolution of the Township Council of the Township of Howell establishing 3-year averaging method in computing the reserve for uncollected taxes. May I have a motion for R23-159?
A motion to adopt Resolution R23-159.
Second. Councilwoman Fisher?
Yes.
Councilman Gager?
Yes.
Councilman Nadell?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.
Thank you. The resolution passes.
I have Resolution R23-160, Introduction of the 2023 Municipal Budget. May I have a motion to introduce the 2023 municipal budget?
I'll make a motion to introduce to adopt R23-160, introduction of the budget, Township of Howell for 2023.
Second.
Councilwoman Fisher?
Do we want to have any discussion, or we're good?
So, the only discussion I would like to have is, I mean, I want to move forward with this, obviously, but I would just like to know if we could have just a little conversation. I mean, $400 of the average is kind of a big number. Just wondering if we could look at it just a little bit, if there's any way we could help that along?
We can look at it, but, I mean, obviously, lowering the budget's a goal. We need specifics. So we're going to need specific ideas about it, because this as presented represents almost a year of work by Lou and I, and we think that it's a reasonable, solid budget that accounts for sort of not unprecedented time, but we're in a very odd situation economically, and we think that this spares the taxpayers as much pain as possible while still meeting the township's budgetary needs. So if there are specific questions you have or specific solutions, you can bring them up now. You can bring them up through email. If we introduce the budget, it can always be amended. But again, it's you know, I think as it stands right now, it's as good a budget as we can get to. But if you have specifics, we will absolutely entertain them.
Okay.
Councilwoman Fisher.
Yes.
Councilman Gager.
Yes.
Councilman Nadell.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mayor Berger.
Yes.
Thank you. The resolution passes.
We did make comments before, so this is ongoing. The next meeting date is Tuesday, April 18th. The executive session, if there is one, is at 6, and regular session is at 7. At this time, I see no further business. Is that correct? I would like a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.